Hello, everybody. Welcome. I think we're about to start. I'm so glad to see you all here for this celebration of poetry and Poetry Month, and we're so honored to have Dick Allen here. First things first, take these out, guys, and either turn them off or put them on silent. And I did this right now so that I would make sure mine got turned off. Anyway, that's the first thing. We have a little warm-up act for Dick Allen, and that's a number of community poets, several students, and then several adults who are going to come up one by one and each read one poem. So everybody, look into your program. If you're reading, look in your program. We're going to start with Claire Herzog. And if Claire could just come up and say your name, read your title of your poem, and then the next person, who will be Victoria, the next person should just get up as that person is finishing. We have two other students coming up, and they know their order, so I think we're just going to start right in.
I'm Marcy Eidelberg, a member of the poetry group, and I'm saying a poem by T.S. Eliot, The Journey of the Magi. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter, and the camels galled, sore-footed, fractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on slopes, terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camel men cursing and grumbling and running away and wanting their liquor and women, and the night fires going out, and the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile, and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. At the end, we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices ringing in our ears that this was all folly. Then, at dawn, we came down to a temperate valley, wet, below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and a watermill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky, and an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with the lintels, with vine leaves over the lintel, 6 hands and an open door dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wineskins. But there was no information, and so we continued and arrived at evening, not a moment too soon, finding the place. You may say it was satisfactory. All that was a long time ago, I remember, and I would do it again but set this down. This set down. This. Were we led all that way for birth or death? There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence and no doubt. I had seen birth and death, but I had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another day.
Hello, I'm Mimi Hike, and I'm also part of the wonderful poetry group at St. Mark's. My poem is called Home. The wrecking ball took a bite out of the second floor and in seconds collapsed bedroom memories. Another blast ended years of cereal eating and TV watching on the little porch off the den. The old house stood for 100 years with families gathered in every room. How many dogs by the fireplace lay and smelled aromas drift to them? Kitchens with ice boxes and men with ice at the back door, and whining refrigerators, ice makers dropping cubes. Another sound memory gone. As the clawed machine ate the door, I wondered who had entered, who had left, what generations were created here. Irony, they thought their home was invincible, protected from storms and wars and the onslaughts of nature. The door is shut and we are safe, we are home. The last bite in an hour gone. Thank you.
I'm Liz Thurber-Massey, and I am also one of the members of the St. Mark's Poetry Group. This poem is entitled Selma, and it begins with a quotation from Martin Luther King Jr. on the Montgomery Capitol steps. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Hot tears, thanks and praise. Selma days march on the wide screen. Black is beautiful hand in hand. Black and white embrace solidarity of faith. Christian, Jew, Muslim. King preaches the story. The future comes that afternoon, March 25th, 1965. Johnson called out the army. Telephotos peered. TVs rolled. No cracked heads, no billy sticks on backs, no women slammed to the roadway. Nonviolence in the air. Headlines shouted, new voices coming, no longer silent. Goal met on the Montgomery Capitol step. Rosa Parks, we don't forget. Tokyo was home for us that year, language and a culture away, spark news from the home front. The Japanese, reborn in democracy, hero-worshiping American freedoms, gasped. The cleaver of race still divided flesh from flesh. As a youth, my husband, beaten up in an Irish Catholic cemetery as the boys leapfrogged tombs, he last in line. His kid sister dragged screaming down an alley, saved in a flash by the deli owner on the corner. Inner city rough and tumble. My husband let go of anger. Justice was his slogan. He rooted for the underdog. He had been one. The time for civil rights was now, then, from his native city of brotherly love to Pacific shores. 2015, progress has fallen off a cliff. Young black men imprisoned, unarmed black men shot by police. The horror of it. Dangerous projects loaded with guns. Selma, I weep for your trial, your victory, your hope. I weep sorrow for America today. Where has safety, where has justice fled? Where the protest, where the compassion? Where the orator's voice and vision? Where the sleuthing reporters in halls of power? Where, America, are the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for all? Are ideals vanished from the face of the earth?
Thank you, everyone. Dick Allen was for many years a distinguished professor of English at the University of Bridgeport. He served as Director of Creative Writing and held an endowed chair as the Charles A. Dana Professor of English until his retirement in 2001. According to his own website, when he left teaching, it was to pursue 3 Bs: Baroque music, bluegrass, and Buddhism. He was named Poet Laureate of Connecticut in 2010, succeeding his fellow professor and poet, John Hollander. Dick Allen grew up near the Adirondacks in Round Lake, New York. He did his undergraduate work at Syracuse and got his master's degree at Brown University. The author of 8 books of poetry. His many awards include the Robert Frost Prize for Poetry, the Hart Crane Prize for Poetry, the May Caroline Davis Poetry Prize from the Poetry Society of America. He's received fellowships from the NEA and from the Ingram Merrill Foundation. Dick is a founder of something called expansive poetry, a poetry that is non-confessional, that centers its experience on observations of the world outside the self. His most recent book, This Shadowy Place, is the winner of the New Criterion Poetry Prize. He's written most of this, or all of this book, in rhyme and meter, and includes many older forms like the villanelle and the triolet, all written in very natural cadence. You will have a hard time spotting these forms right away because he makes it look easy. Buddhism is ever present in his poems and his experience of time. So is his sense of humor and his love of clear language. In a Dick Allen poem, strange and delightful things happen. In a Dick Allen poem, the transcendent moment might involve a parking lot full of cars in a strip mall outside of a Chinese restaurant. In a Dick Allen poem, thoughts about the working life and the muffins of the muffin man who lives on Drury Lane might become a sort of meditation. In a Dick Allen poem, the names of Chinese watercolor brushes might appear in lines right next to a description of the way the sky looks while you're driving on the Merritt Parkway. We are honored to have him here tonight. Welcome, Dick Allen.
Wow, there are a lot of people here. That was one of the best introductions I think I've ever had. Thank you. Very nice. And it's also been a pleasure to hear the poets who have preceded me. I've done a lot of open mic readings with myself and then other people in groups here, and both the student poets and the group are some of the best actually I've ever heard, especially in these last 5 years of being the Poet Laureate here. So it's good to be here. I can't resist this. Gwen mentioned Zen Buddhism. For the last 7 months, I've been negotiating with the largest, or probably the finest Buddhist publisher in the world. And I haven't told people this before, but yesterday they just accepted a book of poetry that I've been working on for 20 years. It'll be published in the summer of 2016, and it's going to be called the Zen Master Poems. It's a group of 120 poems written by a Zen master. So I'm still kind of stunned. But I'm not going to read from those today. I'm going to read, Gwen said, expansive poems. So I thought it'd be probably best for me to start off with this has been a god-awful winter for all of us. I don't know how it was in New Canaan, but it was bad. It was bad up in Trumbull. Our roof leaked, and the appraiser came, and well, anyway. I thought I'd begin with a poem called Poem for the End of Winter, which I've slightly adopted. And it's a poem that does all sorts of things in it. It's a poem that contains many elements, a lot of quotations. There's an enso. An enso is a Zen circle. Many of you may know that. A lot of abrupt transitions. I think that part of the consciousness that we have in the 21st century is that all the time in our lives, song phrases are going through our heads. So I like to put song phrases into poems. Slow down, you move too fast. You got to make the morning last. That's very Zen. Faith Hill, the secret of life is a good cup of coffee. That's very Zen. It's called Poem for the End of Winter. Unexpectedly, the great W of a geese flock across the white sky. Then a few stragglers. It's strange that we don't think of the sky as white very often. From this white sky, occasional rain, the kind barely there, that you have to tell is there by stepping outside or looking at circles on a brook or lake or glistening on pavements and rocks. What is today good for? What is any day good for? I think I might dive into the World Wide Web and swim a little among garage bands and missionaries. Or I might keep looking at paintings by Matisse, how light scatters from one lily pad to another. But maybe I'll just think about taking the tops off of acorns without breaking them. Or about milk pod seeds, or about how several billion years from now, the moon will be a distant white paint dab as the sun gets ready to engulf the planet. And how this makes everything I do now about as significant as a fold in a blanket or a shake of a Drano tube. Foods eaten off white plates taste better than foods eaten off blue plates, the TV chef said. It has to do with contrast, unless it's cauliflower you're eating, along with unseasoned mashed potatoes. And in that case, God help you. Mary had a little lamb, a little lamb, a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. I'm a denotative person, the roofer said. Ask me a question, I'll give you a straight answer, or I'll hand you a ruler. Still, I like flowers. Today might be good for listening to Celtic music. Most especially, Will You Go, Lassie, Go? Or huddling in a corner with an ice cream cone, counting your licks. For approximately 155,000 people, today's the end of the world, most of them being sent to other places depending upon their religions, or at least we hope so. But no one in this universe is doing exactly what you're doing now in exactly the same way. Nor has anyone ever done so or will do so. This crazy uniqueness defining everyone down to their left toes. And we'll all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. On the other hand, the choice is at least seeming to be mine. Maybe I'll once again try to draw an enso and fail, my mind not relaxed enough, not filled with enough calm abiding, not in tune with my body. I'll eat cashews, one Pepperidge Farm cookie, and a few hundred of my own words. Yet the summertime is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming. Odd little robins scatter across the side yard, twitching old leaves aside, reminding me of the tiny women who appear at church rummage sales as they pick through stacks of clothes. No, 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 yes, no, no, no. And then they disappear out back doors. Another sound of honking geese, this flock smaller in a more usual V formation heading north. In this year of great cold spells, in this year of continual snowstorms, in this year of the goat, another winter over with no splash. That was our winter. And let's see. This is a library, so I thought I'd better read a book poem because even my daughter has got a nook and is reading books on it. Shame on her. And there's no stopping it. It's called The Book Lovers of Round Lake. I grew up in a town called Round Lake, and it is written in rhyme. I used to walk through Round Lake at night, and this is a memory of that. The Book Lovers of Round Lake. Insomnia, most said. What other reason would cause the women of our town to stay up reading until almost dawn, fully dressed, their curtains never drawn? They sat by picture windows, reading on and on, snowfall to wind blow, books in golden cones of light upon the laps of Mrs. Brown and Mrs. O'Brien, and Mrs. Shielberg and old Miss Stone, the teacher who never married Mr. Silverton. Mysteries, romance, no child crossed their lawns to sneak up close enough to look upon what they were reading. And now they're gone, well into the night. The August moon, fireflies and will-o'-the-wisp, and you, book-bound author, love them as you would your own. And of course, writers love people who read and people who buy books. By the way, this book will be for sale. My wife will be selling at the table at the end. I say this because if you want to get a book of poetry, what you have to do in most bookstores, the easy way to find the poetry, go way to the back of the bookstore and look down. and that's where the poetry will almost always be. Poets usually bring their books because they're hard to get, and we offer them at tremendous discounts, better than Amazon.com. Really, it cost. So I'll be reading a few poems from this book, and that was one of them. And I'll read a poem, another one following the idea of it's been a rough winter, and this is a poem called "Why Is Life So Hard?" And I was thinking about how to talk about this one. This is I was thinking about my son-in-law, actually, because I was thinking about talking. My son-in-law, he's a good guy, but he's one of those people you never want to have on a TV talk show, because he sits there and you ask him a question and he'll give you an answer. I was thinking what kind of a question you would give. I was saying, well, why is life so hard? And he might answer, I don't know, maybe because it is. Or because you have to work. And then, if you're a talk show host, you got to follow that. Because he's not giving you answers. He's giving you, things. And then you ask a poet that, or a writer that, and we're going to elaborate. We're going to tell you why life is so hard. And I'm going to tell you why life is so hard. Like this. Why is life so hard? Because rocks are hard, and diamonds, and hard-boiled eggs, and it's a hard, ain't it hard, good God to love, and one who never will be true. And because we have always lived between a rock and a hard place, and because of hard cider, hard knocks, hard times, hard luck, the Hardy Boys, Walter Harding, and the Hardy Har-Har of goofy cartoon laughter, and because it's hard to tell, hard to believe, hard to fathom, hard to recognize, hard to hold on, hard to admit, hard to draw a straight line, because of hard living, hardcore, things hard to take, things hard to hear, things hard to admit, because you barely get there when you have to go back, because you hardly get settled when you have to move on, because it's a hard, and it's a hard, and it's a hard, and it's a hard, and it's a hard rains are going to fall, because of hard and fast rules, hard tack, hard knocks in the middle of the night, hardening arteries, hard places to get to, hard lines to cross, hard decisions to make, because sometimes everyone's hard as nails, and it's hard to be upright, and it's hard to bear witness, and it's hard to see your way clear, and it's hard to stay clean, and it's hard to stay sober, and it's hard to love, and it's hard to beat the odds, and it's hard to untangle yourself from politics and fishing nets, and it's hard to forgive, and it's harder still to be forgiven, and it's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog. It's been a hard day's night, and I should be sleeping like a log, and because there are hard roads you have to travel and hard truths you have to swallow, and you must bite down hard or you'll scream. Hardware, hardwire, hard to please, hard disk, hard copy, hard drive, because the Mohn scale doesn't begin to measure it, and the factory stood hard by the railroad yards. My eggs over hard, please. Hard love, hard rock candy, hard rock cafe, hard hats, hard facts, hard tack, hard steps to take, hard shoes to fill, take a long, hard look. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, because iron is hard, and steel, and granite, and marble, because of hard sauce poured over plum pudding, because it's hard to explain Gibraltar, St. Peter, the anchor, hard liquor, hard landing, hard press, hard labor, hard stop, this shadowy place, these difficult, arduous days. And that's that poem. That's where the hook comes in and pulls you off stage. There are some young people here today, and I'm thinking about the experience of love. And I have a neighbor friend who used to sit for our cat when my wife and I travel around the United States. We've actually driven around the United States 13 times. Some people say, gee, I always wanted to do that. We did. And it's something. So she took care of our cat, but then she also had steady boyfriends, and then she broke up with them, and she was devastated. Then she had another steady boyfriend. She broke up with him, and she was devastated. And so I wrote this poem to cheer her up, because I wanted to tell her, using a cliche, that there are other fish in the sea. As I started to think about that, other fish in the sea, I tried, what kind of other fish are there in the sea? This is the kind of way of Emily Dickinson said, tell all the truth, but tell it slant, success, and circuit lies. So I'm really talking about all the other boyfriends, or you can read it the other way, all the other girlfriends you can get at the end of your life, or at the end of your romance, when there's going to be another romance coming ahead. Someday your man will come, or your woman. Other fish in the sea. And this is for Sarah. I'm just telling her, really, it's a fairly simple poem that there. Actually, I'm doing it just because I like names, words, fish names. Other fish in the sea. Just as I predicted, that boulder's shadow was really a wild discus. And if you approach that shoal, a zebra starfish might make you laugh. There's a torpedo ray, and there's a sailfish sculpin, a sapphire devil off to the right. Veer, turn, keep your eyes open, and you might come upon the most handsome flame angel, or a lion's doe cove yellow libido, who spent a lifetime waiting only for you as you swim this vast sea. Look, there's a black perch, a headstander, a red Irish lord, a yellow tang, a Jordan snapper, all those others you kept your eyes from in this wave-tossing love and adventure you now resume, and even more wondrous. See, off in the coral, azure damsels, 1,000 souls, the black and yellow sail of a wild Moorish idol. There are lots of fish in the sea, and someday you're going to get your fish. Gwen mentioned the Muffin Man, and we have phrases that go through our heads all the time from childhood. And I think you all know the phrase from the Muffin Man. Do you know the Muffin Man? Do you know the Muffin Man? The Muffin Man, the Muffin Man. Do you know the Muffin Man who lives on Drury Lane? It's a children's nursery rhyme, of course. I looked up Drury Lane. There's nothing special about it. It doesn't mean anything, but it's just Drury Lane. But that name sticks in our head. So I started to think about the Muffin Man and about what the Muffin Man might mean, and who knows. But it means something very important. It's kind of nice. You can make up your own idea of what the Muffin Man means. But here's about the Muffin Man. Very mysterious sort of a person. Yes, actually, it so happens I do know the Muffin Man. He's a broad-faced, pleasant fellow who lives on Drury Lane. I like his oatmeal muffins, his blueberry muffins, his bran, the banana nut muffins he bakes in his shop on Drury Lane. I like how happy he is, how he tells jokes in the rain when he hands us the muffins he brings from his shop on Drury Lane. There's a sort of a zen to him, like loss rerouted to gain a calmness, a look in his eyes that may come from Drury Lane, but it also may have to do with the muffins themselves. The muffins to end all muffins, the ones you might find on Drury Lane, the ultimate muffins, the muffins to die for, the muffins of fame, the Grey Goose muffins, the cusp of the muffins of Drury Lane, the muffins of meaning, the muffins none can explain, the smell of the muffins, the taste of the muffins from Drury Lane. So, muffins, more muffins, we shout at the sight of the Muffin Man and the cart he wheels each morning filled with muffins from Drury Lane. And the muffins are warm and sweet as they crumble in our hands, each baked by the Muffin Man who lives on Drury Lane. I still don't quite figure out what they mean, but they're definitely there. Yeah, I want to read you two poems about logic. Don't worry. One is the. I'll read a short poem about logic, and then a little bit longer, and then. I don't know if I can even pronounce. It's been a long time since Latin. De gustibus non est disputatum, tatum. And that is, there's no accounting for tastes. Okay. A lot of the best poetry, I think, sometimes is written about not things you love, but things you hate. Okay. So this is a poem written about something that's pretty disgusting. But some people love it. And you see what it is at the end of the poem. I'll call it just de gustibus non, as if what is so disgusting as poached eggs lying there in a frying pan and looking up at you with their yellow eyes, embedded in the marshmallowy, fluffy texture of egg white. It looks like vaguely flavored and slightly warmed dishwater. Why on earth would anyone, except the most highfalutin, want to pierce these vitreous yolks to soak the edges of innocent English muffins in something so runny, so glassy, so slimy, and then add hollandaise sauce and a side of bacon and call it Eggs Benedict. That's the poem. It's horrible. You know, I mean, I had some in a New York restaurant one time. It was really bad. Just to look at it. Let's see. It's a poem, you know, a lot of people, it's a poem about a mistake that people make that ruins their entire lives. And it's based on the logical fallacy. And the logical fallacy is, you know, because of this, therefore that. You know, one thing follows another. So it is really a poem called Teaching the Logical Fallacy. And I try to remember this sometimes when, you know, sometimes you really blame yourself for things. And this is a poem to not blame yourself for something. Teaching the logical fallacy. There is always something else you could have done. Said a sweeter goodbye. Packed 1,000 brownies into her lunch and worn that red vest. Or you could have had the brakes fixed sooner. Or you could have checked the television set for bruises. Or on the road to Miami, you could have stopped at the Mobil station, not the Texaco. Or studying harder, you know, wouldn't have been so bad. And you should have dated him. You should have married her. If only you hadn't gone into that store looking for kumquats, or was it tangerines? That there's always the missing thread, that kettle of fish, the last cigarette before the final one, the letter you shouldn't have insisted be done over, a friend you shouldn't have dumped into the river. Open wide, smile for the camera one more time. You should have known she wouldn't call again. That number was yours. That horse, that dog. You might have got the flu shot when they said. You should have followed that path into the valley. Why did you wait? You should have killed that rat. 1 hour a day, that's all it would have taken. I told you so. You don't remember. Your fault. There's always something more you could have whispered. You should have learned your lesson from the wife of Lot. Because you washed the car, it rained. Post hoc, ergo propter hoc. See, it just doesn't follow. So many people spend their lives, if only, you know, then the car crash wouldn't have happened, or this wouldn't happen, that. It's all wrong. It really is. Let me see. Are we just 2 more poems? One's a poem called The Cause, and it's, you know, how you've been, you join causes, and then as you get to some point, you give them up, but you miss them. You know, if only I was still part of that cause. I know it's probably a liberal group, but I have to confess that I was once a very liberal Democrat. Okay, and now don't worry, it's not too bad. I'm a very liberal Republican. Okay, so I lost one cause and joined the other, but I've jumped off other causes too, as everyone does. And you miss it. I miss all those protest parades, you know, all those marches on Washington, all the rest of it. Anyway, The Cause. When you jump off a bandwagon, it rolls on toward the city's high places, and you're left without music on an empty road, nothing to guide you. Not even the moon drenches each milepost. No joyous faces when you jump off a bandwagon. It rolls on, its pipers shrill, its drummers too loud, yet you listen. Thick notes, then thin traces. and you're left without music on an empty road. Just you versus you. Your pen, your pro, your con, your rabbits and hats, your sleeves, your aces when you jump off. A bandwagon, it rolls on. Mobs crowd beneath church bells. Fireworks explode, but you're not recalled. Clamor throbs in tight spaces, and you're left without music on an empty road. There's not one startled whistle, not one flung baton. No, at last we've done it. No full-scale embraces when you jump off a bandwagon. It rolls on, and you're left without music on an empty road. So you feel sorry for all those people that have to jump over. We all jump off a bandwagon, but we sure miss them. Okay, I shouldn't keep you too long. Let me find a last poem to read you. I don't know, can I read two? Sure. All right. I'm going to read actually two if you let me. One is a quiet poem, and then another is a pretty new poem that leaves with that has some advice to it. Always nice to leave a poetry reading with advice of how to do something and to be inspired. The last one will be called "How Can I Wake Up?" or "How Can I Awaken?" But before that, let me just do another poem from this, a short rhyming couplet poem from this book. And it's because a blue heron flew overhead. It's a quiet little poem. It's called "Because a Blue Heron Flew Overhead." Because a blue heron flew overhead, it was a good day to butter bread, to listen to James Taylor, Stockbridge to Boston, or visit the garden of the unsuccessful politician. It was a good day to ask a clock what makes it tick, or place one brick upon another brick, to remember that if you think, there are ripples, but also if you don't think, there are ripples. And because a blue heron flew overhead, we swept up the porch, we made up the bed, we bought packaged shirts, then took out their pins. We placed gray umbrellas in clear storage bins. There was a road, a lake, a moonlit field, a brow to be soothed, a wound to be healed. Stockbridge to Boston, sweet baby James. The glory, the wonder, the sheer joy of names. And my life was a story of thread and unthread, because a blue heron flew overhead. That's quite something. Okay, this is an inspirational poem. It's got some allusions in it, commandments. And one thing you might think about, when you go to railroad crossings, there used to be signs, stop, look, and listen. Very Zen sign. Stop and mindful. Stop, look, and listen. And then there's, at the end of a poem that the great poet Rilke wrote about a panther, there was the end line, "You must change your life." Some of you may know that poem. And there are all sorts of commandments anyway. So this is a poem called "How Can I Awaken?" Okay, this is advice, sort of, sorry. All right, This is not the usual advice, don't worry. Get out of the stock market. No. How can I awaken? First, if you're right-handed, pinch the inside of your left forearm and sing doo-wop diddy-diddy-dum-diddy-doo, or bye-bye, Miss American Pie. Consult a fried egg. Question everything that makes too much sense, including waffles. If you are serious as the flat side of an iron, pinch yourself again. Know that to be awake is like drinking grape soda, all fizzle and taste, and purple so overwhelming it can send you back into the origins of the universe, that accidental bang in the hallway of nothingness. If I could save time in a bottle. Regard yourself as a miracle with shoes, a stranglehold, a stampede, an almost has-been. Stop thinking about pizza, for God's sakes. Also, stop thinking about Abercrombie and Fitch. And then maybe you've become one of those railroad ties sleeping above Walden Pond. Don't climb a hill of beans. Kindly remember. I love that phrase. Kindly remember. Though cliches and sentiment pain you deeply, obey the lily of the valley commandment, the smell the rose commandment, the smiling umbrella commandment, the railroad crossing sign commandment, the Rilke commandment, and the commandment of the different drummer. Risk censure. Risk laughter. If someone betrays you, foster a belief in reincarnation and take comfort in how that person will come back as a cow, walking to its barn after a long day of chewing cud. And let that person be named Bessie the cow, or Howie the cow, or old Ebenezer cow. If I could make days last forever, if words could make wishes come true, make friends with storm drains. When no one's around, like a pea pod, snap yourself to attention and breathe deeply, as in meditation. Flounder in rising waters and never grasp a thing just rushing by. Thank you. You've been great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we have the second half of our sandwich now. So anyone who has a second poem to read, I think what we do is we just go in the order of the program. So why don't I start? Do any of you students have a second poem? Okay, come on up. So just you, Meredith? Okay, all right, and then we'll go.
I grew up in New Orleans, and I wrote this actually when I was in college, but I've adjusted it a little bit. It's called Louisiana Town. Silent summers, the hot, sticky fog settles, drenching the crescent city. Louisiana town, nestled on the Big Muddy, winding in her graceful boldness to tiny harbors along worn, decayed wharfs. Baritone notes ebb inland. Heavy cloud and languid breeze carries fishy stench to donut eaters, chicory lovers. Foggy blur and street light scene, haggard beggars mingle with revelers, and city dwellers denounce the milling throng. Music roars, buggies rattle, decrepit horses pull, embracing jazzy, snazzy sound while the hot tamale man sells hot tamales cheap, hot tamales cold. Thank you.
Spring echoes. Black tracing pewter sky billowing into dawn. Low crow chatter over fairy mantles, intact call bleaching on June grass. A farmer's up early. Crack goes the rifle. One more woodchuck bites the dust, not fragile seedlings. The sky melts to cloud-cracked robin's egg blue. School day, sunrise sounds waking reluctant children. Blue jays squawk, calls the younger to spill out from blankets. The older rumples the pillow, crumples covers. This morning becomes memory fodder, etched with branches, delicate lines. A double bed rests where the youth bed lay. A woman muses cutting work to sow flowers. Grousing, she rouses, silencing her snooze. People say faraway vistas or home-cooked meals trick the psyche to fling up things past. The woman says birdsong. The ancient cycle of time moves her, and the fragrance of English leather on a dark-haired 17-year-old passing too young. The snow-capped woman ponders other loves. One she left, regrets buried yesteryear. Another died, aged old spice. One an eternal yearning. First love, that youth, tinged heart's birth, mingled fresh scents. His thrush call echoes, come to me green.
Without a cane. As I said before, I write for people, individuals. I have no escape from them because they've been the feature of my life for many, many years. So when birthdays come, I'll write about birthdays. And these are people that I know very well, and they know me very well, and they don't expect me to be very profound, and so I'm not going to be, but I am going to read two short ones. I can recite poetry for, not recite, but read poetry for a long, long time, but I'm not going to do it. You'll be pleased with that. So I've recently had a birthday, which is hard to do at my age, but I managed. And a lot of people came through with birthday cards, of course. And so I had to reciprocate. And some of them had birthdays themselves. So to George, I said, happy birthday, George. My plans to forget most birthday greetings. We need no measure of our life's fleetings. This makes, dear George, your 92 my last birthday poem from me to you, and grants us escape from compelled rhyme to contemplate your times and mine in sight so free from age's measures we can safely savor all ages treasures, ageless treasures. So that's for George. Another lady had a birthday. She's an old friend. She's a little bitch from way back in the very, very high, most prestigious patrician parts of New England. Her English is perfect, often very acid. But she's a good friend, and she expects me to do something different. So this is happy birthday. I'll call her Mary. You know what I'm saying? I'm like awesome at how cool you are. A real cool cat. You got such class that I'm like guessing. You're not like into shit like messing with farts like us, you know, and so all them, you know, are like slow with stuff like birthday dates that show that I'm like thrilled, and so's my broad, that on your birthday you're like adored.
This one is called The Key. I had a key that unlocked iron gates, 4 different wrought and latticed entries, solid brass, a satisfying weight. I used it late at night and early Sundays. Audible and smooth, its click, release. I pushed the heavy door and stepped inside, and under a vaulted arch, the truck noise ceased, and the grass of the court was a city block wide. A tower in the corner looked away to town and sea. A magnolia stood entranced in its velvet blizzard. I couldn't stay and hurried off to work and age and chance. Memory returns these scenes to me. I paid the fine so I could keep the key. So, Victoria, I think we have a couple